Hi, morning everyone. So I wanted to share a few thoughts on worship as on the theme, and building on from what Vix was talking about worship being so much more than singing, but it being about service, it being about reverence, and it being about submission. And been thinking a lot about, be discussing in Connect Group as well, just the importance of singing, but also actually if we are wholehearted disciples where it affects every part of our life, where this Christianity is supposed to be a whole life thing, not just a Sunday thing. Well, what does that look like in the day to day? What does it look like to be a worshipper in the day to day? Does it mean just having that song in our hearts, or actually is it more than that again? And for me, I think it does tie in with being a disciple of Jesus and wanting it to impact every aspect of my life. And it reflects on the verse from Romans, beginning of Romans 12, where it says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." So to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. This is your true and proper worship. So it can't be clearer than that, really, that it's the offering of ourselves, our very selves, that is true worship to God. And, that's all of our physical self, that's all of our emotional self, that's all of our spiritual self and all of our mental self to Him. And using all of that we're able to as our worship to Him. But then what does that look like? And so I've been thinking about that. And the good thing is that we're such a diverse people that it'll look different for everyone. And so I just wanted to share my experience when I've been reflecting on this. And where I've reflected on what that looks like for me, I think it's where I chime most with what I feel is God's heart that He's put in me. And that's with areas around justice and giving a voice to the voiceless. So, because that's where I get most emotionally involved. That's what really sings to my spirit, is when I see justice happen for people who've been downtrodden. That's what gets me most passionate, excited about things, is seeing people given a voice where they haven't had one before. So that's where I feel I can worship God. Sometimes it feels more powerful doing that than singing a song in a congregation as an act of worship. Because, of course, words are good and words are powerful when we declare them together. But if they're not followed up by action, then it's a bit like, telling someone you love them 1,000 times and telling them you'll do something because you love them, but never actually doing it. And the words do begin sounding a little hollow after a while. So it is important that these words are backed up by actions. Because I want to show God. I want to show God that I love Him. I don't just want to say to God that I love Him. I want to show God that I love Him by doing these things and by using what He's given me to worship Him in that way. So for me, with justice things, so it's things, political campaigns where there's opportunities to help support a people, a group that in society that have been left behind, that don't have a voice. If I can anyway email my MP, do a Facebook campaign, whatever it might be, to try and give them a voice, then that, I believe, is a form of worship, which I love to do. Even fair trade, looking at people, trade is such an unfair system, and so ensuring that the people who grew it, who have the least, actually get a fair price. That for me is an issue of justice, and therefore by doing that, by ensuring I buy fair trade, for me is an act of worship. By avoiding companies that don't pay tax, for me that is an issue of worship, because it's an issue of justice, and therefore by trying to live my life in a just way with just values is a way I can worship God. Climate change and campaigning for climate change, I believe that really is on God's heart. And therefore, by campaigning and by trying to do things to help campaign against climate change is an expression of my love for God, and therefore is an act of worship. At work, I'm a doctor working with patients, and one of the things I love to do is to let them feel heard. Patients, it's so busy, they often don't feel listened to. So if I can make them feel listened to and make their voice heard, they feel so validated, they feel so valued, and therefore that is an issue of justice for me in making sure that every patient I see does feel heard. It takes a bit longer sometimes. At home, being a good husband and making sure Rachel feels listened to. With my kids, other issues is making sure that they know who they are and that they are confident in that. That is something on God's heart, and therefore that is my act of worship. So there are so many different things, and I think it will be different for everyone. So my encouragement to you will be, have a think about where it is that you chime most with God's heart, which issues it is, and really see that as worship. See that, and because every aspect of our lives, what has God called you to do in the here and now, and do it well. Do it to the best of your abilities. Do it because you love him. Do it because you want to show him that you love him. And it's a work in progress, but it's the trying, isn't it? It's the trying and making an effort to love him and to worship him in that way. All right. Have a good day. Blessings all.